I need to tell you something. Sharing this is good. Writing is like an anchor to my sanity. Otherwise, I try to cup it in my hands, but it's too thin. It slips through my fingers. I write about horror games, and this last game is by far the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. If I hadn't seen the effect of the gameplay for myself, I'd think it were an urban legend. My friend Jay and I run a small YouTube channel where he plays horror games or games with creepy backstories. He was usually the face of our channel, and since I preferred being behind the scenes, my role was to research the history of some of these games and share them if they were interesting enough. Jay had been sent a link to a game neither of us had heard of before, supposedly from a fan. It was an indie game, the only one ever made by the company. I at first thought it was a joke because it seemed like a cutesy RPG made for kids based on the description and the promotional art. It came out in 2006, was never widely promoted, and it ceased being sold after a few months. None of the usual review sites I frequented mentioned the game at all. Extensive Googling only gave me a few pieces of information, but what I found intrigued me. The game seemed slightly different for everyone. Skills, items, quests, NPCs, everyone that played had a wildly different experience. The only thing in common was that the content was disturbing and chaotic. There were also reports that prolonged gameplay resulted in confusion, and in some cases, an irreversible detachment from reality. The scarcity of information, in addition to rumors of real-life impacts, was what convinced Jay to play. And now he's gone. I was sitting on the other side of the room from him when he started playing, my back to him. I had just finished writing and posting across various sites, asking for any first-hand accounts or information on the game's history. "Hey, Annie, look at this. I'm stuck. I can't even complete this basic quest because the NPC is glitching out." I came over to take a look. Jay's character was trying to return a lost item, but the NPC just kept repeating, "The colors are too thin. The suffering is not yet enough," instead of accepting it. Jay eventually gave up and moved on to a different quest, and I moved on to look through suggestions for our next game. A bit later, I heard a series of wet, smacking sounds coming from Jay's speakers. Something about the sounds unnerved me a bit, so I decided to put my headphones on. About an hour after that, I got up to grab us both a snack, and I could still hear it. A squelching had joined the mix, which somehow made it even more disconcerting, like some sort of sick symphony. I could see from over his shoulder that the game was playing, but it appeared to be an extended cutscene. I inched closer to see what was on screen. An elderly man was hunched over Jay's character, wrist deep in his abdomen, grabbing pulpy handfuls of viscera and bringing them to his dripping mouth, moaning as he ate, stopping every so often to spread it across his face. Jay's character was twitching. He was still alive. A horse was standing in the corner and was peeling off and eating bits of flesh from what looked to be the remains of Jay's in-game family. Blood had seeped into the cracks into the wooden planks of his home. Despite the age of the game, it was all so detailed. The high video quality made the graphic scene even more disturbing. Even now, I can still hear those sounds in my head. The tearing, that wet chewing. "Jay, what the hell are you watching?" I probably have the stronger stomach of the two of us, and this was a bit much for me. I didn't know how he was still watching this. No answer. I walked around to face him and saw that he was slumped back in his chair. His eyes were open, but unfocused. He was quietly muttering to himself, words that I couldn't understand. He was deathly pale and was taking quick, shallow breaths between words. I panicked and called 911. He had no physical injuries, so the explanation he was given was that he had experienced a severe anxiety attack resulting in dissociation. When he came to, his eyes darted nervously around the room, settling at times on the shadows in the corners. It took a long time for him to calm down. When I dropped him off at his house after they released him, he seemed distracted, confused. I tried to get him to stay with me, but he refused, so I stayed with him. The only thing he said to me that night was when he looked at me in a sudden moment of clarity and raw fear and asked if the suffering was enough. By the end of the next day, he seemed to have recovered, So per his insistence, I went home. He was gearing up to continue his recording as I was leaving. When I got home, my inbox was flooded with notifications. I had heard back from almost 200 people regarding the game. Here are some of the responses. Dude, that game is garbage. It was hella glitchy and made no sense and gave me a headache. It didn't even have a multiplayer mode, but one time another player asked to enter my home and this thing came out of the monitor, you know? It wasn't right. Do not play this. I did things that I do not feel comfortable describing here. This was all per the game's instructions. I'm ashamed, and frankly, I'm afraid at what I was capable of. That damn game was so frustrating. I couldn't even play it for more than an hour, but I still see them in the shadows. It's been like 15 years, and they won't leave me alone. What a waste of $30. I remember the game being crazy realistic looking for the early 2000s. Sometimes I still see certain scenes in my nightmares. I can taste the flesh. I feel their gristle between my teeth, and it all feels so real. Yes, I played it, and it was disgusting. It gave me a crafting recipe, and the required materials it asked for were pieces of my wife, my real-life wife. It mentioned her by name and said the item that I needed to craft required her bones, her tongue. It gave me tips on how to go about getting them, too. Something is seriously wrong with this game. I tried to get in touch with the company to file a complaint, but I couldn't reach them. My brother Danny played that game. I remember it being trippy AF LOL. He used to play all the time before he disappeared. I think I disappeared too. This game truly terrified me unlike any other. There was the constant fear of what the game would ask of me next, what it would show me. Would I feel the pain as my children peeled the flesh from my face? Again? Would I see him emerge into my living room, writhing, screaming, wearing my skin? I don't know how this game was programmed, but something terrible went into making it. Multiplayer mode was awful. I told him he couldn't come in, but he came in anyway. He tore them apart. There was nothing left. Playing this sent me down a slow spiral into insanity, pain, and self-loathing. It took several months of therapy to recover. Please don't play it. Of course, after I started reading through these responses, I immediately called Jay. After what I'd read, and after his incident, I was worried. He wouldn't answer. He just sent me short, non-committal texts assuring he was fine. It took a few days before he got back to me, and the conversation was so strange. Jay greeted with a cheerful tone. Hey, what's up, my friend? I was taken aback, exclaiming, Oh my God, I've been really worried about you. Are you okay? With a carefree laugh, Jay responded, Oh, absolutely. I'm having the time of my life over here. My concern deepened as I pressed on. Did you get my messages or see my texts? I've read some disturbing stuff about the game. I don't think it's healthy to keep working on this after what happened. I don't think we should post any of this either. It seems like it could be dangerous for some of our viewers. Jay's voice took on an eerie excitement. Oh, it's great. I want to show you what I've made. Once you peel back the skin, it's smooth sailing, bud. The only problem is the suffering is not yet enough. You need to see this. I felt a chill as Jay continued. Annie, it's almost ready, but I need your help. Let me show you. Please come over. We need to show you something over here. You'll love it. His voice grew more insistent. Annie. I got to his house and saw his front door was open. His house was a mess, unlike I'd ever seen it before. The walls and carpets were splattered with gore as the result of his crafting. It was too late for anyone to do anything for him by the time I got there. I watched his walkthrough recordings last night. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I'd feel closer to him, or I'd understand. I didn't sleep well. I woke up sweating, screaming, but I can't remember the details. They're too fleeting and thin, and they slip through my fingers. But now, I understand what he was trying to do. I saw the item he was told to make. He must have known he'd never finish building it before he went into shock from the blood loss and trauma. That's why he needed me to help him. It was clearly a two-person job. Looking back, now that I've seen what he was trying to do, it was truly an exquisite piece. and he was so close. If only I'd been able to help him finish. This game took my friend from me, and I need your help. I have something I need to build, and I can't finish it on my own.